UFC Vegas 94. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. One of the worst cards of the 2020s, but I'm going to break it down from the bottom all the way up to the top. So make sure you guys smash the like button. If you're new, subscribe. Turn the post notifications on and make sure you share the video as well. Also note, I'm doing a full card fight companion for this. It's going to be Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and then it's going to lead into the Jake Paul main event too, which I'll be fight companioning it up for. So make sure you all watch it. Let's jump into the first fight. Mohammed Usman versus Thomas Petersen. I expect a bit of a sloppy heavyweight fight. I got to go with Usman. I mean, at least he has some championship blood in his veins. Thomas Petersen looks like Brock Lesnar without the steroids or something like that. He's okay at wrestling. His stand-up is pretty bad. It's not the worst ever at heavyweight, but it's like a 4.5 out of 10 level. It's pretty bad. Usman at least has knockout power. He's got some wrestling in his own right. Not as good on paper as Petersen, but I think more effective in fist fighting than Petersen. I feel like Usman could hurt Thomas Petersen with a big punch. The only thing about Usman that worries me is the fact that as jacked as he is, he doesn't have any density to his muscles. How the hell is he 237 pounds when he looks every bit of 255 and seems like one of the bigger framed heavyweights, but he's not even 240 pounds. So it's a little bit worrisome because Petersen could potentially control him against the cage. And that is why I'm going to favor this fight going distance. I'm going to say Mohammed Usman gets a decision. He's going to have a power advantage. He's going to have a striking advantage. And I think he should be fine in the wrestling department because Thomas Petersen, I don't think is that high caliber. And I could see him failing on significant amounts of takedowns. It's just the KO. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. In the small cage, I think Petersen's going to end up tying up with Usman a lot. Usman will land some big punches, but I don't know about him putting Petersen out. At the end of the day, Usman should definitely win, and I feel like there's a high probability of it. If he loses to Thomas Petersen, he's in a rough spot. Now, I know at one point I was hyping up Thomas Petersen when he was fighting Jamal Pogues. I thought he would land the takedowns in that fight and really wrestle him up, and he was unable to do it. Fighting Jamal Pogues and now fighting Usman, this is a step up in competition, I feel like. The Ultimate Fighter winner, Usman, he's got championship blood. That's all that matters to me. Minus 145, I think he wins the fight. Over 2.5, minus 210, where Petersen is plus 125. I feel like Usman hurts him with some big punches, but doesn't put his lights out. Petersen panic wrestles and ends up getting some control in the clinch, but ultimately damage Trump and all. Usman's winning on the scorecards. Let's keep running up. Next fight, we got Luana Carolina and Lucie Pudilová. This is a battle of the back end. I guess I'm really giving a hard time to Carolina, but she is on a 2-fight win streak. I'm picking Luana Carolina, though. I'll tell you this. I feel like Carolina has a style that looks really bad to the eye, but actually works. Like, she has this weird, unorthodox, herky-jerky Muay Thai kickboxing-esque style, and she throws punches that probably, if you're looking at technique, would be considered wrong with the chicken wing elbows, but she's got decent speed, and it's women's MMA. She lands decent combos. She's resilient on the floor. She's pretty athletic, too. I mean, if you look at the wins, win over Stoliarenko in the third round by finish, who's a good grappler, beat Petrovic, who was a good prospect, lost to Joanne Wood, it was a split. Molly McCann got her with that spin elbow. That was badass. And then the Lupe Godinez win was pretty good. Granted, it was Godinez, different weight class. Now, note that Carolina is moving up in weight to take on Pudilová at 135, which now changes things a lot because I won't lie to you. My brain was auto telling me it was at 125. Damn, Pudilová is a big girl, though. I might be changing my mind as we speak. You know what? The film tells me Carolina has suspect takedown defense, but has good get-ups. The only problem is I was coming into this really thinking that Pudilová was dropping to 125, which now in retrospect, I feel like an idiot for thinking. Oh my God, Pudilova's probably going to win a boring decision. Carolina moving up in weight is not something I like here. I was thinking Pudilova's going down. I'm figuring it out live. Thankfully, I looked at the weight class. Wow. Yeah, I think Pudilová probably lands some key takedowns. I was thinking Carolina on a split decision, but now I'm thinking Pudilová on a 29-28. Carolina is pretty resilient, though. But the issue is, and this is a simple issue, Pudilová, even though I think she's not good, she bodied Jocelyn Edwards and got robbed. She was bodying Eileen Perez in the third round. Nah, Carolina's not the pick. I got to go the other way, seeing that it's at 135. I'm going with Lucie Pudilová to win. I think she gets a decision. It's going to suck, but she's going to win the fight. She's going to control. Carolina at 125, it's a different fight. Pudilová, if she's cutting that weight, it's a different fight. It's at 35. Carolina's going to be the smaller girl. And normally, Carolina's winning these fights with the size advantage. So, yeah, we're going with Pudilová. Now, I'm not considering this a pick flip live. This is me recognizing the proper weight class. So, yeah, I got to go with Pudilová now to out-wrestle her. I think Pudilová by decision. Looking at the over in this fight, what is that at? Minus 350. We're probably going over. It's not crazy for Pudilová at even money at 135 with Carolina moving up. The reason you typically like Carolina is because she has a little strength advantage over the smaller girls at 125. But moving up in weight against Pudilová, who at the end of the day does have a fight against Edwards where she probably should have won. She lost to Eileen Perez, but she dominated her in the third round. And Eileen Perez is actually good on the ground. She's a good wrestler. Yeah, I'm going to go with Pudilová. We're going with her. I think she wins at 135. If this fight ends up being a flyweight fight, and that's an improper call by Tapology, we're going to have to dig into it deeper then because we'll have to recall it. But I think Pudilová at 135 gets her. Next fight, Loik Radzhabov versus Trey Ogden. I think Trey Ogden wins. I know that Loik Radzhabov is so intimidating. He's a physical specimen. He's jacked. He looks like he's on steroids. He comes in throwing pretty good wide hooks, slapping flurries, walks people down with confidence, can wrestle hard for 3 rounds. But if you really look at his game, is he that technically sound? No. Trey Ogden fights at a calculated pace, and I think he has technical advantages over Radzhabov. Trey Ogden has pretty good kickboxing, pretty good wrestling, pretty good jiu-jitsu. He's kind of the master generalist. He's going to have a reach advantage. I think he fights at a more calculated pace than Radzhabov. I feel like Trey Ogden could win a decision here, and I will not be surprised if he controls Radzhabov on the ground in the second and third. Round 1, Radzhabov is a monster. As big and jacked as he is for 155, he's going to be a lot to deal with early. But as this fight heads on and some time goes by, Radzhabov, as muscle-bound as he is going to slow down, and Ogden is going to find success. Ogden's been doing pretty good. He should be on a 2-fight win streak. Dominated Holobaugh on the ground, was on his way to submitting Mota, and then got robbed of the submission win. Fight before that, lost to Ignacio Bahamondes, who's a fantastic striker. Fight before that, beat Daniel Zellhuber, who's a fantastic striker. Look, Radzhabov lost the second round to Abdul Al-Sawadi and looked like he was gassing. Lost to Rebeshki by KO, and then he beat Esteban Ribovics, which has aged fairly well with Ribovics devastating Terrence McKinney last time, but you can't judge it off of, the current day Ribovics. It was a close fight. I think Trey Ogden can get a decision. I just have a feeling that his patience and his ability to control range and control pace gets him a W. I got to go with the crafty Trey Ogden to pull off a bit of an upset here. Now, looking at the odds, Radzhabov minus 125, Ogden plus 105. I don't know. Radzhabov is a gassing risk for me, man. I think we're going into the later stages. I think there's a fair amount of decisions. Minus 215 for the over 2.5. I think that's more likely than, throwing it all down on the money line. I know it's close, so I guess it's tempting no matter what side you're on. I don't know about Radzhabov being that good, though. Like, of all the OVs in the UFC, I feel like he's one of the lesser tier. I know he's a PFL vet. I know he's been fighting at a fairly high level for years. But I think Trey Ogden can beat him. Radzhabov is a physical freak, absolutely jacked and scary. And he's a nerve-wracking guy to be on the opposite side of at 55 because you're wondering what mutant steroids he's injecting. But I think Trey Ogden can be the kryptonite with his patience. And Ogden gets weird wins. Beating Daniel Zellhuber doesn't make a lot of sense for Ogden, and beating Radzhabov is a similar situation. So give me Trey Ogden by a weird decision. Next fight, ladies, going after it. Miranda Maverick, Dione Barbosa. This is Miranda Maverick's fight. I don't see her losing here. Barbosa's taking it on real short notice. Maverick was supposed to be fighting against Tracy Cortez, who fought, this past Saturday against Thug Rose. I think Miranda Maverick is good to go against Barbosa. Barbosa really didn't look impressive against Kruschewsky. She gassed. The thing is, Miranda Maverick is not a great finisher, and Barbosa has good jiu-jitsu. But the fact that Barbosa gassed last time against Kruschewsky now takes this fight on short notice against Miranda Maverick, who's way more high level than Kruschewsky. And I thought Barbosa could have lost that Kruschewsky fight. It wouldn't be crazy if Maverick got a late submission of an exhausted Barbosa, regardless of the jiu-jitsu skills. I'm going with Miranda Maverick all day. I'm high confidence on Maverick. She's not losing here. Minus 240, you better parlay it now because I think Miranda Maverick deserves to be a minus 350 favorite. Barbosa plus 205. Maverick's fought at a high level. This is a different level, man. Minus 325 for the over. I don't know. A third round finish for Maverick isn't crazy to me. It's not like I love that bet. It would be D-Gen AF, but I think she could get a late stoppage of a tired Barbosa. Maverick's also younger with more experience. Like, Maverick's a lock all day here. Win over Andrea Lee. Win over Cachoeira. Lost to Jazz Davicius. Jazz Davicius is pretty game. Barbosa's not that level. Kruschewsky win, and then Rain Guerrera. This girl was not even close to UFC level. Kruschewsky win was close. She could have lost that fight. This is Miranda Maverick all day long. Dominance by Miranda Maverick. She's a chalky lock on this card. I think she's a really good women's pick. High confidence on Maverick. This should be a washout for her, and she should be a 350 favorite. Next fight on the card, Brian Kelleher versus Cody Gibson. I'm going with Cody Gibson. You know what? Cody Gibson has lost both of his, UFC comeback fights, but we got to take positives away. Even against, a 1 week notice Miles Johns, I got to give respect to him getting his back and having some control in that fight. Miles Johns is a savage. I'm a big Miles Johns fan, so I think Cody Gibson's pretty solid. Brian Kelleher, he's a little bit washed, and he's got really short arms, so Gibson's going to have the distance striking advantage. Also note that Kelleher's recent UFC wins have been against scrubs. Domingo Belarte, who turned out to be terrible, and Kevin Kroom, who got released from the UFC immediately. Cody Gibson on the other side, yeah, he lost too, but look at this win outside of the UFC. John Dodson win, I don't care if it's outside of the UFC. That's a really big win to have on your record. John Dodson's actually good. I feel like Cody Gibson's going to finish Brian Kelleher. Kelleher's lost 3 straight, and they're all finish losses. You can see submission, Umar Nurmagomedov, who's an absolute G. Mario Batista, who's an absolute G. And then he got knocked out by Cody No Love. So I think Cody Gibson can sub him up too. If they go to the ground, I could see Gibson getting a rear naked choke of Kelleher. So I'm going to go with Cody Gibson by submission. I think he wins. Big range advantage. Quality striking game. Cody Gibson from distance is okay in this fight here. I think Kelleher does have decent low kicks, but Gibson should be fine. Striking, I think Gibson is close with him on the ground. I think Gibson's the better wrestler, and he's got better control. And I just think even though, they're nearly the same age, Gibson's closer to his prime. He just fought in the Ultimate Fighter finale. He won some fights there. It's not like you look on paper, you're like, oh, he's losing a lot. It's, 2 wins on tough. They don't count in your pro record, but he's 21-10 if you count those. I think that Cody Gibson's submitting Kelleher. Gibson is minus 210 the favorite, and then Kelleher is a plus 180 dog. I like Cody Gibson to win. I feel pretty good about him pulling through. Over 1.5, minus 200. I favor the over 1.5 because I feel like even though I'm picking Gibson to get the sub, I don't think it's early. I think it's a little bit competitive early on, but Gibson has a clear advantage. Then he eventually gets Kelleher's back and probably chokes him out. I'm going Cody Gibson for the win. I think he wins it. I think he's got it. I feel good about it. He'll come back. He'll get a win finally. Next fight, featured prelim, Hyder Amil versus Ji-Yoon Lee, the Korean Tiger. I'm going with the Korean Tiger. The thing about Ji-Yoon Lee that I like is he kind of looks like a fucking tiger. Look at his face, bro. He's got a tiger-like face. Hyder Amil, when you just look at it, like 9-0, and he's this big of a dog, like this is a even Stevens fight. Hyder Amil's almost 35, bro. He's 34 years old at 9-0. That's a lot different as a prospect than Ji-Yoon Lee, who's 11-1. And his only loss, he also avenged it. So we got to give him respect there. Lee's pretty fucking terrifying with his combinations and explosive flurries. He also does have good takedowns and control. I feel like he's faster than Hyder Amil. Amil had a good debut knocking out Fernie Garcia, but Fernie's a damn bantamweight who took the fight on short notice, stepped in out of shape with the belly to fight Hyder Amil, and got stopped standing. Amil just was able to absolutely barrage him with big shots and bully him on the ground. I think Ji-Yoon Lee is better than that. Ji-Yoon Lee is not losing to Hyder Amil. I think that he's going to give Amil his first loss. Now, the question is, can he finish him? Amil's a pretty gritty pressure fighter, and he did well dealing with a lot of pressure on contender. Emra Somra has shot like 100 takedowns on him, and Amil defended almost all of them. Now, this, I think, is a little more of a striking fight. With both guys willing to engage in brawls, it's going to be really interesting. I see big shots flying. I think this is one of those underrated bangers on the card. I think it's actually going to be pretty damn good. I think Ji-Yoon Lee on the scorecards has got to be the official call, though. I would love to see Lee get the finish, but he hasn't shown it at the high level. Like, yeah, he's destroying guys in road to UFC, but the road to the UFC competition level, to say it in layman's terms, sucks. A lot of those guys are not UFC level, so he's squashing cans. Like, okay, fighting, Yiza, that was a legit win. And Yiza's on a 2-fight win streak in road to UFC. Beating Blake Builder by a dominant decision's okay. Hyder Amil, taking out a blown-up Fernie Garcia on short notice. On paper, it looks good, but reality, I think Ji-Yoon Lee has got his number. I think Lee's going to hurt him with some big strikes, but Amil's chin holds up. Look at that thick jaw. He's got that Drew Dober-type jaw. I think Lee by decision. He's a 2-1 favorite. I agree with the odds. I'm going Ji-Yoon Lee, minus 200. Hyder Amil's a plus 170 underdog. Let's see what the over is. Please, be an over 1.5. Over 2.5 is minus 115. If you can find an over 1.5 at like minus 250, I think that's a decent little parlay piece. I do think it goes over 1.5, probably over 2.5, but it's not crazy to think that Amil, with his willingness to exchange and sometimes seem unhittable in the pocket with the chin up in the air, doesn't get caught by a clubbing shot. Because Lee can rip his punches nicely. It's just, he's still developing. That UFC level is a different jump. And granted, it's not like Hyder Amil's his top caliber UFC fighter, but he's another good prospect. It's a serious prospect battle with Contender Series winner versus Road to UFC winner. And I got to favor the younger Road to UFC winner to beat Hyder Amil, whose only UFC win is a blown-up Fernie Garcia, who shouldn't even have been in there. He took the fight, got a bag or whatever, did the UFC a favor. But Hyder Amil's a 34-year-old prospect. At bantamweight, or rather at featherweight, at bantamweight, at any of those lower weight classes, 34 in a prospect is not a good sign below the welterweight division. Even below the middleweight division. I'm going Ji-Yoon Lee. Let's keep running. Next fight on the card. Our main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes. And if you're new, subscribe it up. We got Doo Ho Choi versus Bill Algeo. I'm going with Doo Ho Choi. The reason I like Doo Ho Choi here, regardless of the fact, I'm hearing the comments right now. I know he hasn't won since 2016. Obama was president when he won his last fight. It's been a long time. It's been almost a damn decade. But okay, listen, hear me out. He did really well against Kyle Nelson in his last fight. And if not for the point deduction, wins a decision. And Kyle Nelson's on a roll right now. Kyle Nelson was beating up Bill Algeo. Yes, it was a very early stoppage. The ref jumped in way too soon. I picked Kyle Nelson in that fight over Algeo. So I don't know. Fading the Algeo side recently did well for me. I think Doo Ho Choi, I think he still got something, man. Like at one point, Doo Ho Choi was the guy that everybody was high on. If you remember, he had one of the best fights ever with Cub Swanson 7.5 years ago. And then he had an absolute banger with Jeremy Stephens. He's losing. His claim to fame is losses. Charles Jourdain knocked him out. That didn't age well. That's almost 5 years ago. And then taking on Kyle Nelson, what did he do? He forced Kyle Nelson to be the wrestler in that fight. Nelson walked Algeo down, winging wild bombs and bullied him in the striking. Kyle Nelson wanted to wrestle Doo Ho Choi a lot of that fight. I think Algeo is going to try to wrestle here too, but I think he's going to get stung up with big shots. I think Doo-Ho Choi's got a big knockout left in him. I don't think that Doo-Ho Choi is taking an L, because if he does, he's probably done. I know Bill Algeo has been way more active. And I know Bill Algeo has decent wins. I mean, Herbert Burns win, I guess it's not really that decent. Andre Feely, close decision. TJ Brown win. Alexander Hernandez win. They're decent wins. But none of these guys that he's beaten as of late, I know you're going to say, when I say this, you're going to say, oh, but Joe Anderson Brito, though. Nobody had the big power and the stinging wild shots and the slickness of Doo-Ho Choi on the feet. I understand Joe Anderson Brito's a monster, and Bill Algeo was able to deal with that chaotic savage, but different fight, different time. I think Doo-Ho Choi's style is actually decent here for Algeo. Algeo's kickboxing is solid. He is more of a striker, even though he does have okay wrestling. And even with the layoff for Doo-Ho Choi, who was in the Korean military, he's only 33. I think he's going to win this fight by knockout. I'm going Doo-Ho Choi for the W. I'm not sleeping on a guy who at one point was a highly touted up-and-comer, but due to military service and some long layoffs, the hype kind of dwindled down. Yeah, he took some losses, but I think he bounces back here. Plus 145 for Doo-Ho Choi. Bill Algeo at minus 165. Choi is the slicker striker. There's no question about it. And Algeo likes those low hands. I think he gets caught. Under 2.5 is plus 140. Interesting. I'm going with Doo-Ho Choi to knock Bill Algeo out. And I think he bounces back. Years out of the game, comes back strong. And I'm very happy because there's some absolutely sick fights that can be made for Choi moving forward. So Doo-Ho Choi for the W. He beats Bill Algeo. And the hype is still on the Korean Superboy. I'm not forgetting about it, okay? I know many of you didn't even watch Doo-Ho Choi's bangers of the past, so you're looking at, who is this bum that never fights? At one point, he was that guy, and I think he still is. Next fight, we got Cody Durden versus Bruno Silva. I like Bruno Silva to win a lot, and it's not because I've interviewed Bruno Silva on Moneyline, okay? For the OGs of the channel, they know. I like Bruno Silva's skills, though. He's a patient striker. He's actually more karate-esque and calculated. He fights like with the open hands, parrying shots nicely. For the nickname being Bulldog, you'd expect like the high-end, tight, slick boxing style, like a Mike Perry bare-knuckle brawler. No, Bruno Silva's sophisticated. Silva also is scrambly AF on the ground. He has good jiu-jitsu. He went long against Tagir Ulanbekov. And the Tagir Ulanbekov that he went long against, well, different Ulanbekov, a younger Ulanbekov who was large. If you go rewatch that Bruno Silva Ulanbekov fight, Ulanbekov looks like a damn fucking featherweight out there. He's a weight bully and a half. Now, I know Cody Durden got subbed up by Ulanbekov, and Bruno Silva did go long. He's, oh, but Ulanbekov evolved since then. Did he, though? Is Ulanbekov better now? I think Ulanbekov has actually gotten worse since that fight against Bruno Silva in some capacity. I like Bruno Silva's skills in this one. I think Bruno Silva has better jiu-jitsu, though Durden pretty game with the wrestling. If you're talking striking, Durden can kickbox, but Bruno Silva's talented on the feet, and he's got power. I like Bruno Bulldog Silva a lot. I know Cody Durden's a good pressure wrestler with a heavy gas tank who can mix it up in the feet, but like he had bad moments against Jake Hadley, even though he won. He didn't do well late against Charles Johnson. I think Bruno Silva finds a late submission. I think Bruno Silva's going to catch him in a rear naked choke. Bruno Silva's coming off the win over Tyson Nam. He caught him in that rear naked choke after rocking him. Power in the hands. 3-fight finish streak, too, for Bruno Silva. I think Bruno Silva's getting a W. Bruno Silva win via submission. He's strangling Cody Durden in this fight, and I'm telling you, it's good for his career. He's going to be fighting big fights. I like Bruno Silva a lot. At flyweight, he's a fun guy to watch, man. Like right at that upper echelon, top 15 level, Silva can be involved in some bangers. And I think this is one this Saturday. Minus 105 for Bruno Silva. Give me him. Durden minus 115. Let's go, Bruno Silva. I love it. Minus 255, minus 260 for an over 2.5. No, I think they're wrong. It's a third round finish. Under 2.5 plus 200. I think Bruno Silva gets a submission win over Cody Durden. He's going to catch the neck. We've seen Durden neck cop before. We've seen him subbed. And I think Bruno Silva's the guy for the job. Bruno Silva by strangle. I'm picking him to get the win. Team Brazil for the W. And I'm excited as hell for this one. Next fight on the card, Kurt Holobaugh versus Kaynan Kruschewsky. I'm going Kaynan Kruschewsky. I feel like I have to favor the striking, the youth, the speed, the jiu-jitsu skill. Kruschewsky looks better on paper, and when he fights, he looks pretty slick too. I like kind of on Kruschewsky's chances, man. I know Kurt Holobaugh is an absolute dog. He had a great fight against Jason Knight on The Ultimate Fighter. He won against Austin Hubbard. That was sick. But he's not submitting Kruschewsky. Kruschewsky would be more likely to submit him. And if they're striking, Kruschewsky's faster and more powerful. I think Kainan Kruschewsky could rock Kurt Holobaugh, maybe put him down. But I could see this fight being relatively close. Holobaugh, he can wrestle a bit, but he's not great from top. It's more from the bottom. And I don't think Kruschewsky gets subbed from a Holobaugh throwing up a triangle. I just don't see it. And I don't think Kruschewsky gets involved in a Don Fry versus that fat Asian-esque type brawl from Pride FC where they're just throwing big shots. I feel like Kruschewsky lands some clean ones, maybe rocks Holobaugh a bit. I could see Holobaugh weathering the storm and surviving, but I'm picking Kruschewsky to win. Now, Kruschewsky was flatlined by Elves Brenner 8 months ago. That was vicious, but he had a nice win by submission on Contender. You can see a lot of finishes here. He's got good leg kicks too, Muay Thai-esque kickboxing base. I'm going to lean Kruschewsky on the scorecards. I think he fights smart and he wins here against Holobaugh. I think he'll end up being on top of Holobaugh for moments. He'll land some big shots. Holobaugh will pressure and he'll make it a good fight. And I'm going to go with Kruschewsky to win though. Minus 140 for Kruschewsky, close money favorite. Holobaugh plus 120 is the dog. I'm favoring Kruschewsky right now. I'm favoring the youth, man. Looking at the over 1.5 at minus 205, I feel like I like the over 1.5 over everything else, over the money lines. I wouldn't want to throw it down on Kruschewsky against Holobaugh, and I don't think Holobaugh's a big enough favorite for me to justify underdog or pass type bet. I've rolled with Holobaugh in the past. I've rolled with him over Ogden. I absolutely fumbled. I feel like I really overrated his offensive wrestling. And in this fight here, Kruschewsky, known for good jiu-jitsu and has good hips, man, with the kickboxing base, the reach advantage, the speed advantage, the youth advantage. I'm going with Kruschewsky to pull through. I think he finds a way against Kurt Holobaugh. Unfortunately for Holobaugh, man. Next up, we got Steve Garcia versus Seung Choi. I'm going with Seung Choi to win. I feel like Steve Garcia, he's a little bit loopy with his shots, and Choi is better with straight punches. I feel like it's easy to forget about Choi's good moments. Like, he dropped Bruce Leroy pretty bad. He went distance with Josh Culibao and lost a split. And yeah, he lost by knockout to Mike Trezano, who decided to leave the UFC and do bare-knuckle boxing, straight hands fighting, and he's winning there. I feel like Seung Choi is actually golden in this fight here. Now, he's coming off of a decision with Jarno Aarons, and people say, oh, Aarons, he's kind of mid. Listen, Jarno Aarons is actually a really good stand-up fighter. Steve Garcia is a bully. He's got brutal pressure. He rips huge punches, but I feel like the straight shots are live for Seung Choi, and if he's got a little bit of that speed and slickness advantage, he's also got a little reach advantage. Note something, Steve Garcia's weakness, you know what I think it is the Asian strikers. He was knocked out badly by Mahashate. Granted, it was up at lightweight. Now he's back down to featherweight. Last time he took on Melquizio Costa at lightweight. I feel like Seung Choi finds the chin. Steve Garcia gets dropped a good amount. Even against Shailan Nordenbeke, he went out and won that fight, but he was dropped badly in the first round. And Nordenbeke has nowhere near the striking prowess and slickness of Seung Choi. It's a night and day difference. Choi with the straight is going to rock Steve Garcia. And I think at featherweight, Steve's going flat out. Seung Choi is going to chin him. Everybody's sleeping on Seung Choi. He's an underdog here. He shouldn't be a dog. Steve Garcia should still be an underdog. Garcia's a minus 145 favorite. Seung Choi plus 125. If this fight was a year ago and, you know, maybe this fight didn't happen or something like that, these two didn't happen, I feel like Seung Choi's a 2-1 favorite. And seeing him at plus money, styles make the fights. Choi's a slicker kickboxer. He's faster than Steve Garcia. He's better with straight shots. He's going to catch Steve Garcia. I'm going with Seung Choi. I love that he's an underdog because I don't agree with it. I think it's an under 2.5. Under 1.5 minus 165, I'll say yes, but a nervous yes, okay? It's a yes, but It's not a high confidence yes. I feel like Seung Choi's hands are dangerous, and I don't think he gets caught with a stupid looping punch from Steve Garcia, which his game is built on these looping shots and uncomfortable pressure. I think Choi stings Garcia with a big one, rocks him, and then flattens him. Seung Choi for the knockout. He's chinning Steve Garcia, and he's a damn good underdog. Let's get to the co-main event of the evening. We got Brad Tavares versus Jun-Young Park. My God. Of all the fights on this card, I'm sitting here and still scratching my damn head. Even though I got a pick written down, I'm thinking to myself, this fight is pretty close. You know what, guys? I really think that Jun-Young Park is on a little bit of a roll, whereas Brad Tavares is on a little bit of a slide. So I'm going to go with Park. I think that he wins. He maybe even gets a late stoppage. His boxing is better than Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares is like the ultimate generalist. This is his game. Well-rounded everywhere, decent striking, no knockout power. Brad Tavares has no knockout power. I hate to say it, but Brad Tavares has no power. So Jun-Young Park is going to confidently throw shots at him and move forward on him. I think Park could sting him with a few, but Brad Tavares is pretty durable. I mean, he went long with Dricus du Plessis. He went long with Adesanya, but then he's getting knocked out in the first round by Edmund Shabazian and Bruno Silva. And then he gets knocked out in the third round by RoboCop. Granted, Park also got knocked out by RoboCop in a good fight where he hurt RoboCop too. I'm going Park for the win. I'm feeling like Park could end up putting Tavares' lights out. I mean, got the sub over Albert Duraev, which is pretty impressive. Dennis Tallulah win. I mean, the wins of Park that were like all right, impressive, are against meh fighters. He did beat Eric Anders by a split, but he definitely deserved the win. I kind of feel like this fight looks similar to the Anders one. I think Park lands a bit more significant strikes. I think it has competitive moments. I think there's a lot of work against the cage. I think Tavares is going to try to smother Park against the cage for 3 rounds, and I think Park's going to be resilient and land some decent shots and squeak by 29-28. It's a damn close fight, but I think it's Park's fight to lose. Minus 185, Park's more primed. Plus 160 for Brad Tavares. I'm going with Park to get a W. Let's see what the over is. I think it's pretty high likely that we're going distance. Minus 215 for an over 2.5. I'll say Park on the scorecards. It could be Tavares on the card, so that over 2.5 might keep you safe. But I do think Park lands more significant shots. I have a hard time seeing Brad Tavares land any big punches that sting Park up, whereas I could see Park wobbling Tavares a bit, even if he's unable to get him out of there. So I'm going with the Iron Turtle. I'm going with Jun-Young Park. I'm going with a 29-28 decision win in a pretty competitive fight. But Park's got better boxing. He's got live wrestling, at the very least, to stop Tavares' onslaught. And I think he could sting Tavares with some good punches. He's a little bit better on the feet. So we're going with Park, more primed to get a close win. But I really emphasize close because I see it as a competitive fight. Next fight, our main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes. And if you're new, subscribe. We got Amanda Lemos versus Virna Jandiroba. I think Virna Jandiroba is going to end up pulling off a win. I feel like she's going to wrestle the hell out of Amanda Lemos in this fight. I feel like Lemos' striking is devastating, but Jandiroba's offensive grappling pressure and like monkey-like back control is extremely annoying. And I think she's going to wrestle fuck Lemos in this fight. I think Jandiroba is going to be all over against the cage, especially that small cage is an advantage for the grappler in this fight. I think Lemos can throw big, hard shots, but Jandiroba seems to have a pretty damn good chin, and I feel like she'll eat some clean shots by Lemos, and with decent enough striking, is going to time some takedowns, especially when Lemos goes to kick. I can see Jandiroba getting her to the floor, and I think Jandiroba is going to garner some control time. She's going to lock position in from the top, and I actually think Jandiroba is going to sub her. I think Jandiroba is going to find a rear naked choke. I feel like as good as Lemos' striking is, and the fact she went long against Wei Li, we overlooked the fact that she was significantly controlled by Wei Li, who, though is a decent wrestler, is more of a danger in the striking department, whereas Jandiroba is a true Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. And if you look, Jandiroba's only losses are against fellow grapplers. When she takes on strikers, she shines. She has really annoying pressure. She has really annoying wrestling attempts, and they work. Her takedown attempts are on point. She times strikers really well, gets on top, controls. Amanda Lemos, I don't like her on her back against a Mackenzie Dern, getting controlled a bit. And I think that Jandiroba at this point is a worse stylistic match than a Mackenzie Dern, who gets more reckless on the feet. Jandiroba doesn't have that sense of recklessness striking. She's not going to go out looking for a knockout. She knows her path to victory, and that's fights getting to the floor, her garnering significant amount of control time, wearing Lemos out, and finding a submission. I think Jandiroba is going to be on her back, whether it's climbing her back against the cage or it's taking her down and getting the back. I think Jandiroba is getting something under the neck. I'm going with Verna Jandiroba to win by sub, man. I'm going against Lemos. I like Lemos a lot, and I wanted to go out and pick her, but I kept saying to myself, she's got to knock her out because Jandiroba is going to keep coming with the wrestling. And if Lemos fatigues and we get into a third round, the fight gets heated, we got constant wrestling pressure, constant attack, I see Jandiroba subbing her up. I don't think Lemos is going to be throwing up that ninja choke. I don't think it gets close to landing with Jandiroba. Though, yeah, against Wei Li, Lemos, was close to a couple sub attempts. Don't forget, she was controlled a significant amount in that fight. And she's taken on a way more jiu-jitsu-focused fighter here in Jandiroba, who just has a really annoying, smothering style. And she's also surging right now on this 3-fight win streak. I'm going with Verna Jandiroba to get a win by submission in the main event. She's a -150 favorite. Lemos is going to have to knock her out. Lemos is +130 as the dog. I'm going with Jandiroba to win. I'm going with the smothering grappling. It's interesting. We got under 2.5 +170. I would like to see what an under 4.5 is because I think Jandiroba is live for a late win by submission or even potentially an early win by submission. But at some point getting a submission. And if you are on the flip side, I think Lemos is more likely to get a knockout. If you told me they're going long, I think it's Jandiroba garnering control on the ground and winning rounds, winning a lot of time here. Lemos can have moments, but Jandiroba's going to win rounds with this damn wrestling control, this smothering grappling, this jiu-jitsu style of annoying pressure, good positional knowledge and control, and knows when to attack for the sub. And I think she's going to find it on Lemos. I know Lemos has only subbed once, and Draj caught her with a standing arm triangle, but Jandiroba's a different match. She's so damn sticky on the ground. I'm telling you, she's like a monkey on the back. And I'm going Jandiroba to win by submission. I think she's beating Amanda Lemos here. So we're going Verna Jandiroba to beat Amanda Lemos in the main event. She's getting a submission. And I really think Verna needs to be taken serious now in title contention with the W over Lemos, who 2 fights ago was challenging for the belt. Jandiroba for the win. She's winning this UFC Vegas main event. Not a stacked card at all, but hopefully it's an impressive win. I don't know. I'm actually excited to see how this fight plays out, sitting here talking to you guys about it, because I think it's more interesting in reality than it is on paper, because it is a weird matchup. This is the ultimate essence of striker versus grappler. Jandiroba, smothering jiu-jitsu style, and you got to respect her. Beating Lupita Godinez, who was a good prospect, dominantly on the ground, dominating Marina Rodriguez on the ground, dominating Angela Hill. Then, yeah, lost to Hibas, who's a good grappler. Win over Kanako Murata. Granted, Murata turned out to be a bit of a, exposed prospect, but it's all right. Mackenzie Dern win, but concerning with the grappling moments. Lost to Wei Li. Win over Rodriguez, who's a striker. Win over Michelle Watterson, who's a striker. Lost to Andrade, who's obviously more striking base, but does have pretty strong grappling and just physical brute strength. I think Verna Jandiroba is going to get a submission win over Amanda Lemos in this main event, and I think she's shooting her shot at potentially challenging for the belt. That is the upcoming UFC Fight Night. It is not the most stacked card ever, but I promise you guys, there's going to be some low-key bangers on it. I'll be doing content all week, so make sure you subscribe with the post notifications on so you don't miss a video or a live stream. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you savages for tuning in. Smash the likes on your way out. I appreciate the support. W's in the comments if you got nothing to say, but definitely let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, everybody.